so grateful to be here today. So grateful to be in this philosophy. So grateful to be a minister today because it has caused me to go deep this week. And I love, Carol, that you gave us a moment to just be inward and to be in that silence, because that is where we find that wholeness and the peace and the harmony. And so with the election this week, I know that there are many people who are happy and who are celebrating the result and feel like that is the right choice. Got some feedback going, some right choice, and that our country is moving in the right direction with that choice. And I know there are other people who feel shocked and sad and devastated and are very concerned for their own well-being and the well-being of friends and family and loved ones and just people across this country. And both of those groups exist here in this sanctuary today. And so I'd actually like to start out with a letter that is from one of the ministers of our movement, Harry Morgan Moses. And he says, "Dear awakening souls, regardless of political views, whether celebrating or weeping, the work at hand involves a willingness to be a part of the healing and allow the greater good to emerge in our nation. Clearly, we are each being called to model faith, conviction, and belief. Now is the time for each of us to practice denial of all fear and of any outer authority. Who we are and whom we have the potential of being is called into being through our spiritual practices. Our faith and conviction has never been more needed. Let us show up grounded, strong, and faithful. Now we are being called to pray for our country, its direction, and its wisdom. We know that there is good to be found. The United States is strong and flexible and seeks higher ground." He says, "Yesterday, as I voted, I prayed for our country and for the highest and best as we move forward. I know our next work is healing division. Individual choices and collective choices of how we move forward is important. It is important to recognize and remember that we have choices of how we show up and walk through this world this day. We're encouraged strongly, lovingly, passionately to stand in our truth, to remember who we are, and to declare, 'I will not get off the bus.' I am trusting that all of us who really care about keeping the peace, honoring all of our people, and being good stewards of our precious earth, instead of falling into despair and anger, choose to go to a higher level of consciousness and are guided to do whatever needs to be done to help awaken humanity to its spiritual magnificence. We have an opportunity to bring ourselves to the center of all good and to deepen into love and infinite wisdom that underlies all external events and to name it good." And so regardless of if you are happy with the results of the election or if you are unhappy with the results, we are all being called. This is not the dress rehearsal. This is the real deal. This has been the dress rehearsal in us, all of us learning to love each other and accept each other and see the light in each other and call that forward and to not be judgmental and to be inclusive and bring everyone in. We are being called to do that now. This is the opening show. We are being called to stand in our faith, the faith that the love intelligence of this universe is present right here and that it is present everywhere in this country. We are being called to stand in our principles of love and inclusion and equality and oneness, and not just with the people that you agree with, but with everyone. The title of my talk today is "I Will Not Get Off the Bus." And I'm talking about taking a stand, like Rosa Parks did, standing in faith and standing in our principles of love and inclusivity and being a power and a channel and a place for good to show up in this world. That means, if we are doing that, that means not creating animosity or division in our world. And you know what that means. Not posting things that create divisiveness on Facebook, not creating divisiveness in conversations, but looking at how can we be in this together and move forward from here. I'm talking about the fact that our job as awakened beings in this room is to be the Christ consciousness, to be that Christ presence, the presence of healing, the presence of peace, the presence of moving forward in this world. And so in class this week, we've been talking about Christ consciousness. And so I wanted to share a couple of things that Ernest Holmes has to say about it. He says, Christ is not limited to any person, nor does he appear in any one age. He is as eternal as God. He is God's idea of himself, his own self-knowingness. The Christ presence is God's idea of itself in us. He also says, it is now nearly 2,000 years since this wonderful man, he's talking about Jesus, the Christed one, since this wonderful man labored in the vineyard of human endeavor, pointing a way to eternal reality. Centuries have passed, nations have risen, only to decline and fall. Science has solved many problems, invention has harnessed subtle forces, and our land is filled with the institutions of learning. But the world is looking for another great teacher, one who will again show the way. Never before was there such an inquiry into the hidden meaning of things. Never such a searching after God and reality. It seems as though all people are engaged in this search, and no one can be satisfied until he has made the great discovery for himself, the realization that God is indwelling the soul and the spirit of man. We are called in this time of turmoil in this country, in this time of rampant fear in this country, to be the Christ presence, to be that Christ presence for ourselves and for other people. That means to be the presence of peace and unity and truth and light and love. I know that all of us want to feel safe, and we want to feel secure, and we want to know that good is unfolding. You know what? Good is unfolding, even if we can't see it, because life is for itself. That means life is for good, and life is for us. Life is for the whole. And so when I have found myself getting into fear this week, there's an affirmation that I have been using that I share with you. The affirmation is, I consciously choose to stop scaring myself. I consciously choose to stop scaring myself, because every time I'm scaring myself with what if this happens, I'm making up a story. And that story is scaring me, and it may or may not ever even be true. A second affirmation that I've been using that has been really helpful to me, that is something that Ernest Holmes says. He says, fear is a lie and a fraud because it denies the divine presence. My fear is a lie and a fraud. It denies the activity of the divine is here and now and through all of this. I have forgotten in those moments that the infinite love intelligence of this universe is present and is active in my life and in the life of this country, present in every person, in every moment, in every circumstance. And so the truth is, all of our prayers, my prayers, for the highest good for this country, our prayers to be the presence of peace, to be the presence of love, and for oneness, do far more good than our worry and our fear and our concern and the stories that we make up. I read this week, I love this. It said that Buddha's last temptation was to take the peace and the equanimity that he found and to retire from the world. But instead, he brought that practice to the larger world and taught the people and lived in that world with those people. That is our example. To tap in, to go deep within, and to touch our own spirit, to touch our own divinity, to touch that infinite love, presence of harmony and wisdom and intelligence and good, and then to come to the world from that anchored place, that centered place, to touch that and then live from there and teach by your actions and by your attitudes and by your words from that place. That's how we create the world that we want to live in. And so I would like to take you through a meditation. And you all have on the back of your white sheet some questions and that we're going to answer in this meditation. So if you need a pen, if you don't have a pen, will you please raise your hand? Barbara is going to hand out pens. Barbara. Still, Sharon needs a pen. And so I invite you to close your eyes and to just take a deep letting go kind of breath. And to just let everything fall away. Any concerns, anything that you've been carrying, and to just let that slip onto the floor at your feet. You may pick it up later if you want, or just leave it here. Imagine that there is a thick golden rod down the center of your body, from your head to your tailbone. It is as thick as your body is from your back to your chest bone. This rod is made of golden light, the color of the sun. It runs from the top of your head to your tailbone. Focus on this golden light for a moment. Notice its warmth. Notice its continuity. Notice that it has the energy of love. A love that is beyond a human love. It is the love intelligence of the divine. This core of light is always within you. It is eternal. It is changeless. It is always present. Now allow that light to expand until it fills you. And now it expands beyond your body by a foot or two. This is the light of God. You walk in this light everywhere you go, in everything you do. It is your essential nature. You are safe. You are loved. All is well now. And now. And now into eternity. And so anchored in this essence of your own being, which is your divine self, I invite you to ask yourself, what contribution can I be here in this time? What contribution can I be? And to write your answer down when it comes to you. What contribution can I be? And moving back into that space of golden light. Into this light where there is only one. There is no demarcation where it ends and you begin. I invite you to ask yourself, how can I reach across the seeming divide and see and hear others instead of creating duality, right and wrong? How can I reach across the seeming divide and see and hear and embrace others instead of creating duality of right and wrong? How can I reach across the seeming divide and see and hear and embrace others instead of creating duality of right and wrong? And sinking back in to that place of infinite love, wisdom, that is always at the very core of our being. We ask that love, wisdom, what else is possible? What else is possible? What else is possible? And I invite you to open your eyes. Does it feel a little more expansive than when you walked in here today? Living in the question moves us to a place of creativity and of possibilities and of creative solutions and of answers. I saw a video blog this week that was by a woman who was very upset and distraught over the election. And she spoke about our judgments and our conclusions that we make, and how whenever we have a judgment or a conclusion, we stop creation. We move out of that realm of creativity. Anytime we agree with something or disagree with something, there is no space for something new to come in. It's final and it's closed. But instead, when we live in the question, we live in a place of creativity, we live in openness, and we live in a place of possibilities because we are open to the possibilities then. And so in that video blog, she invited us to ask ourselves, how can this turn out better than we ever imagined? How can this turn out better than we ever imagined? Just living in that question creates spaciousness. You know what? It could cause people across this entire country from every walk of life to come together like we've never come together as a nation before. It could, because Donald Trump isn't really a Republican, he's never registered as a Republican, it could cause this bipartisan fighting to stop and people to step across the alley or the walkway or whatever you call it, the aisle. Because he's never been in Congress, he could walk in there with new eyes and see things that those Congress people have not seen because they're so immersed in it and create some major reform. The point isn't even finding the answer. The point is living in the question. How could this turn out better than we ever imagined. It leaves room for the good to come forward. It leaves room for the good to come forward through us and in our lives and our relationships and our interactions with people. So we ask the question, and then we become part of the solution. And so my invitation to you this week is to stand in your principles. Stand on your principles of love and inclusion and peace and harmony and oneness. To stand in your faith that there is one infinite presence that is everywhere present, all of the time, active all of the time in everybody. Refuse to scare yourself. Quit telling yourself scary stories. Ask yourself that question, how can this turn out better than we ever imagined? Let that be a possibility. Be a part of the solution that all of us are working toward. I'll bet a lot of you got in that meditation that we all want the same thing. We all want to thrive. Be a part of the solution and refuse to get off of the bus of peace and of unity, and the things we stand for here at Living Beyond Limits, the things we sing about before service. Refuse to get off of that bus. And so I thank you all for being on this path and being awake and saying yes to that call within your own spirit to bring it into the world, and for being the change that we want to see in this world. I thank you and bless every single one of you on your paths. Thank you. And so I invite you to join me in a spiritual mind treatment. And so we take our attention off of this material world, this physical reality, and instead we turn our attention to the realm of spirit, that invisible presence that is always right where we are, that invisible presence that permeates everything with its beingness. That infinite presence that is expressing itself in and through and as everything that exists here on planet Earth and here in this entire universe. Everything is the outpicturing of that one. And so I recognize indeed there is only one. That each of us in this country are a part of that one. That we are each one with this world and with nature and with each other and with the divine and with peace and with love and with good. And so today we anchor ourselves deeply in that knowingness, for that is that golden light that lives within us, that place of oneness. And so today we live and move and have our beingness in this world, in this presence, remembering that we are here to bring it into the world in a way that is healing, in a way that is beneficial, in a way that brings good to this world, because we are the ones that are awake. And so we say yes to the call of our hearts and our souls to be that Christ presence for ourselves and for those around us. And what a blessing it is to stand in this light, and what a blessing it is to share our light with the world. And so I know right now that every single one of us in this room is led and guided by this highest good, by this love, wisdom, and goodness. That we are led and guided, and that it goes before us into every single relationship that we have, into every single encounter, every single situation, unfolding itself as good, for that is truly what is happening right now. Good is unfolding itself. And so I place my faith and my trust in that good, and I keep it there. And I speak this word for this entire country, knowing that every single person walks in that light, and that light lives within their heart and within their soul. And as we see this right now, as I speak this word, it is magnified. It comes forward in a way that is palpable, in a way that is felt, in a way that is known. And that we all are this presence of love and of wholeness and of good. And I speak this word for every single one of the politicians in this country right now, knowing that there is a coming together, that there is a coming together to shine this light of God in this thirsty world. And that light of God is unfolding itself through each of them. And so I rest in that. And I say, thank you, God, for this truth. Thank you, God, for this beingness that is happening. And so I release this prayer, and I say, thank you, God. And so it is.